A little gray out there this morning, but I tell you what, the weekend's looking nice and sunny and warmer. Jeff Hopper will be here with weather details coming up top of the hour. Jeff Thompson is here from Robert Half International. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks very much.
A lot of students probably already have their summer jobs lined up. Some maybe not so much. But no matter what you're doing, applying for jobs or changing careers, whatever, the resume is key. We're going to talk about resume do's and don'ts today.
Yep.
First of all, do know how to make one, right?
That's an important part to starting.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you get that information or get that knowledge, Jeff? Because not everybody has it right away, right? And if you're doing your first set of resumes.
Yeah, I think you can certainly look and gather examples of other people's resumes just to kind of get a feel of different formats or different ways of putting it together.
Go online and you'll find out.
Go online, go on all the job boards. I mean, you'll be able to see and look at resumes. And I think the reality is there's no real one format that's better than the other. I think you need to come up with what you think is best for yourself.
And there's certain styles and stuff out there that you can find that may be applicable to the job you're applying for. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it varies, and I think that's where it's important that when you're developing your resume, you actually need to customize it for each job that you'll be applying for.
Don't. It's not a stock thing.
No, it's not a stock thing. It's not a cookie cutter thing.
No.
I think you really need to pay attention each time.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I think the most important thing about a resume is it's your first impression and maybe your lasting. If you've got a crappy resume, they're not going to hire you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
No. Yeah.
Nobody.
No, I mean, we talk about first impressions when we walk in from an interview's perspective, but you need to get to the interview. And, a properly formatted resume, a properly well put together resume is really what's going to get you there. One
of the things you point out is that when you're talking about the skill set that you do possess is to describe it and be accurate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think you want to be precise, you want to be accurate, you want to highlight whether it be technical and or just overall, your abilities in performing certain tasks.
Yeah.
It needs to be clear.
Do not be vague and say you are familiar with or your responsibilities include. Look, I'm familiar with the vice president of this company, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are the kind of terms you want to avoid because it doesn't really demonstrate very much. I think you need to be precise. If you're working with Windows 7 and that's what you're supporting, then you should state, I support Windows 7.
Yeah.
And not, I'm familiar with it, because familiar doesn't mean all that much.
No. It's very vague, and I think, you have to be precise.
Yep.
So you also point out, do look to the job description for relevant keywords to include in your resume.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes back to customizing your resume for each opportunity. If they are a Windows 7 shop for that matter, and that's what they're using from an overall IT perspective, and that's a skill that you possess, you're going to want to have that in your resume. Don't
use the words optimize, leverage, and utilize. Why not?
Well, I think those are terms where I think you're not being precise. You want to give them concrete examples. I think some of the hiring managers, when you utilize words like that, they don't want to be fooled. I think they just want to have the actual,
That's funny. You just said when they utilize words like that. I got it. You do want people to get to the point, right? And I'm not a manager and everything, but I can imagine sitting there going through resumes, and some of them are just like on and on and on.
Yeah.
Cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase, have the relevant information on your resume, make it concise, not run on rambling long sentences. I think you need to be short, to the point, and have it specifically point to what the job description is and what you're applying for.
Yeah. The one thing we want to touch on before we go, and we're almost out of time here, but it says don't clutter your resume with extraneous personal information. Does a prospective employer care if I like movies?
No,
they
not
don't.
in that perspective. I think adding some interests show a little bit of your background and desire. I mean, if you're if you're active and so on, okay. But I think that maybe at the tail end of your resume, just to demonstrate some of the things you do outside of work. That's important as part of who you are. But again, having an overabundance of it.
That's more in conjunction with the interview process, that if the prospective employer would ask you questions, right?
Yeah. So you want to put a little bit, and if they want to dig into that a little bit to kind of get a little bit beyond what your work experience is and touch on a little bit of your outside life, then they're going to ask for it for sure.
Good stuff. Listen, more information at Robert Half has all kinds of this info.
All this info, you can go to Robert Half. You can certainly call one of our offices, rhi.com, rht.com.
Yeah.
It's all there.
If you're unsure about your resume, investigate. do the work and away you go. Jeff Thompson with Robert Half International. Thanks very much.
Thanks very
Good
much.
to see you.
Appreciate your time.